Yes, hello, I'm Wendy Reid, I'm the chair of Manx Care.
We're speaking on quite an important week for Manx Care because we heard on Tuesday that Chief Executive Teresa Cope is to leave the organisation at the end of next month. Actually, seems to be the deadline. And well, we've heard a lot this week, but not particularly much since the statement has come out. So I want to put to you first of all the question we've heard most of all through our social media, which was, has Teresa Cope been pushed or did she jump?
So Teresa's made a decision to move on. It's professionally the right time for her and personally, and I just want to say she's done a fantastic job and I'm personally very grateful to her, but also professionally very grateful to her for starting up this extraordinary organisation called Manx Care.
Talking to a few people around Nobles, it seems to have come as a little bit of a surprise. When did Teresa tender her resignation?
I can't tell you exactly what date that was, but it was very close to the announcement of through the press releases. These things always come as a surprise to other people, but it's Teresa's decision.
We had heard, possibly on the grapevine, that there might have been a vote of no confidence in Teresa coming. Is that true?
I'm not aware of any vote of no confidence in Teresa.
We did ask for Teresa and to speak to her personally as well. We've not heard back yet. Is that deliberate? Has she had to sign a non-disclosure in the terms of her leaving?
So first of all, I don't know that. Her employment is through the government. But secondly, we have been very busy. It's the meeting, our board meeting week, and we've also been extraordinarily busy clinically. So she's been doing her job as the leader of the organisation. I'm sure she'll find time to speak to Manx Radio. In fact, I think she offered that yesterday at the end of our board meeting with one of your colleagues who attended.
She said she'll be taking a couple of months on island before heading off to new opportunities in November. Will she be working as chief executive up until that point at the end of June?
Yes, Teresa will work every day, every minute, every hour until she finishes her contract here. She has always done that. She is an extraordinarily dedicated public servant.
What do you think of the reaction from the public on the Isle of Man to the resignation announcement this week?
Well, I think it's not for me to comment on other people's reactions. I think from my perspective, I just want to assure the public that our key attitude is to maintain stability and to make sure that we continue the great work that Teresa started.
Someone described it as possibly the worst job on the island. Do you think that's fair?
There isn't an easy chief executive job in health and social care anywhere in the world.
5.5 years. Do you think that's a good stint for a chief executive at that level?
I think it's an amazing stint to start something up, to build it, to appoint an exec team, to bring in clinical leadership across our divisions in the hospital, to enhance general practice services, dental services through new contracts, the CAMS programme, 4 hubs across the island. You, of course, on Manx Radio know the detail because you've talked about it many, many times. These are extraordinary achievements, and she has been a figurehead.
Looking ahead, what plans are in place to start the recruitment process for a new chief executive? Has it already started?
Well, of course, that is the government's appointment, but I would hope, and I expect and am involved as the chair of Manx Care, we will be influencing and helping and supporting the government to make the best possible appointment.
If a new chief executive isn't appointed before the end of next month when Teresa Cope leaves, who then takes over? Who's left holding the fort?
So one of the things I'm doing between media interviews is working with the Department of Health looking at interim arrangements. This is a normal practice. It's very rare that you get one chief executive in and one out. These are senior roles, and we need to take our time and make the right appointment.
What do we need from a new chief executive? Because I imagine it'll be a slightly different job description to the one that Teresa took on. She was taking on a new organisation. Are you looking for different qualities in the next chief exec?
That's a great question. And obviously I will take time to reflect on that. We've begun discussions with board colleagues and with department colleagues. But it's an opportunity to think slightly differently. You're absolutely right. There are areas that we could perhaps focus more on. Engagement with medical leaders, engagement with clinicians. There's always opportunities to build a slightly different profile. I'm not a great believer that the job description defines the person you get, but I think there's more to the next phase of leadership, and we need to look at what that would look like. So that's a really great challenge, and it's one I look forward to working with department colleagues and supporting ministers as they look to make that appointment.
Realistically, do you think you're going to have to look off island for a new candidate?
I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I've just got through the stage of thinking about Teresa and the immediate challenge, but I think we need the best person to serve the public over the next sort of 5 or so years. So I'm agnostic on where they come from, but of course, this is about valuing everything that goes with working on the Isle of Man.
In light of this announcement this week, some people have suggested Manx Care's board also needs to be refreshed. What do you make of those challenges, I suppose?
Well, I welcome that question because we've just done precisely that. Our first board meeting this week, we welcomed 4 new non-executive colleagues. We've massively changed the balance, so we now have the majority of our non-executives on island, something I've been passionate about as an off-island chair. Our newly appointed vice chair is an on-island person. These are really big steps for us. So we have an almost new board, and just the energy around the board table, when you reinvigorate that, and the support with the exec team as a unitary board is absolutely crucial.
How will that change things for people on the island, having a new board like that?
Well, I think what I want to see from my new board, and particularly my new non-executive colleagues, is a better engagement with the public. So we have some very welcome members of the public come to our board meeting, and one of them wrote to me earlier this week with a really interesting proposal about how we think differently about what is the public engagement. It's a real challenge in every system to get it right, but I take his views very seriously, and I don't want to name him because I haven't got his permission to do so, but he has been a stalwart commentator and support and challenger of Manx Care from, as I understand it, the very inception of it. So using that, I think, as a lever, which I said in the board in public, we will be talking to him and others about how we use the fact that I've now got a majority of people who reflect the views of the public on the Isle of Man back into the board, sitting around that table.
Do you think that will satisfy the medical staff committee, who we heard from this week, which said Teresa Cope's departure needs to be a turning point, a necessary turning point for healthcare governance on the island?
I think the public and the medical staff committee are not necessarily two different people, but I think we need to take a slightly different approach to both. So the medical staff committee is composed of people that work for Manx Care. Clearly, there is a sense of disengagement from some of them, and I offered before Teresa's announcement to meet with them, and I'm meeting with them next week. Clinical leadership isn't just medical leadership. But clearly there's more to be done in that space of engaging with them, but also listening to them and learning from them. These are experienced senior clinicians. We will not ignore their voices.
Just to pick up on a point you were mentioning before in terms of public engagement, it has been said that there was a lot for Teresa Cope to bear on her shoulders. As this chief executive, she seemed to be at times the one point of contact between the media, Manx Care and the public. Do you think that needs to change? Do you think the next chief executive should be able to have people either side of her to field questions as well?
Again, great question, thank you, and one I'm looking forward to answering. The answer is that when Manx Care started, my understanding is that there was very little of an executive structure around Teresa, and she's had to build that. In the 2 years I've been chair, we have appointed a new medical director, director of nursing, director of people. We've got a structure now, and those people's voices are well respected within their professional capacities, and I would like to see more of them out and addressing issues. It's already happening with colleagues in Tynwald and ministers. The briefing is broader, but when you've got somebody as impressive as Teresa, it is inevitable that people like you and others are going to go to her. That change gives others an opportunity and us a reason to develop their skills in that communication space.
If we can speak a little bit more broadly about Manx Care, as we're at this landmark moment in its history, is the arm's length approach working, do you think?
So that's not for me to say. I have come from arm's length bodies in England. I understand the process. But the structure of how care is delivered is a political decision.
In your experience, have you had such a close connection with the political side of things before? Do you think it's quite close-knit on the Isle of Man?
Of course it is, and that's one of the joys of working on the Isle of Man, is that everybody knows everyone, and that closeness is an opportunity to really get improvement instantly. If I speak to the Minister on a weekly basis and sometimes daily, she talks to Teresa all the time, that can only actually improve things. How we put governance around that is precisely what the Department of Health's governance review is about. And I think things change and develop. Organisations and structures can't stand still in the same way as individuals leading them don't stand still.
What can you tell us about the governance review and the areas that the Minister referenced where perhaps there are some shortcomings? It seemed to be that the structure, the management structure, was to blame through that statement.
I haven't seen blame or heard blame, and I don't think that's a helpful construct. This is a really exceptionally useful thing to do. I instituted governance review internally when I arrived here, simply to understand how we better served our accountability to the department and to colleagues in government. This is the other side of that. Of course, it's bigger and bolder because that's the government's view. And it's not for me to comment on what the outcomes of that are. It will be part of a democratic process, consultation. We are, of course, the main stakeholder. We're Manx Care. But the aim of any review like this is to improve the services for the public.
Do you know when we'll find out more about that governance review and find out a bit more about those areas of slight shortcomings?
I'm afraid I don't. That's a question for the Department of Health.
A common criticism has been that there's too much senior management within Manx Care. Do you think this is a time to review that?
Well, the comment is incorrect, I'm afraid. We do not have too many senior managers. What I wanted to see when I arrived was increasing clinical management, which we now have. And I think there's a misunderstanding about that in terms of the role of how we deliver care. Just look at yesterday. We had a really increased pressure on services. You require expert managers to lead their way through that.
You might have seen the comments from Onken MHK, Rob Callister, former health minister, who made a suggestion that there should be a politically elected vice chair and chair for the Manx Care board. He thinks that could be beneficial. What do you think of that?
So again, that's one for the politicians. I was politically appointed. I was appointed by the then minister, and I stood before Tim Wald and sought approval for that appointment. But that is a question for the politicians in terms of how they wish to change structures.
You said in this statement this week, the formation of Manx Care from a standing start was a huge ask, and undoubtedly there has been progress across many areas of governance, transparency, and most importantly, care on the island. Do you think the public see it that way?
I hope so. And certainly, having just seen a very tiny number of the emails that Teresa's got from members of the public thanking her personally, we always, of course we do, focus on the less positive. That is our job. But sometimes it's important to take a pause and say thank you and praise people for what they've achieved.
People do point to, we've heard stories of lack of governance, a lack of transparency, even instances of poor care people have put to us. Do you think it's becoming an echo chamber? Do you acknowledge those issues?
Of course. I mean, how people receive care, it's a constant, ongoing challenge to make sure we do the best for everyone. Inevitably, things do not go well at times. And I think we take responsibility for that, and we work to constantly improve. And that's not just at board level, that's at every level, right down to by the bedside, front door, everything. It is always a constant focus.
Do you think the public have trust in Manx Care, confidence in Manx Care?
It's not for me to say. The chair doesn't comment on what the public's views are, but what I see and what I hear and when I walk round, People are satisfied with the service. We have various tests, the friends and family tests. We have MCAL's feedback. We seek feedback in lots of different ways, and we're always happy to hear from everyone, whatever they want to say to us.
And that new board that you mentioned before, do you think that will improve matters in that regard?
Well, I think of course, I don't want to. We had a great board beforehand, but we've had a gap in the number of non-executive appointments for some time now. So it's an invigorating opportunity to deal with people who are sitting around a board with new ideas and new ways of looking for assurance and new ways of bringing thoughts back from the community. So yes, it will of course change things.
I wonder if you can tell us, while we're on record, we have heard this week about pressures on Nobles Hospital and going to Opal Level 4. Where are we standing today? What's the latest?
So we've gone down at 8:15 to Level 3. So the immediate challenge of Opal 4 is managed. My understanding is that I think it's the second time in 18 months only that we've been at Opal 4. And I just want to reassure the public that this is a safety measure. It's about making sure that we give safe and quality care. And that's why we use this internationally and nationally accepted scale of escalation that allows us to then look across the way in which people flow. So the challenge is always flow. It's a sort of term in use now of how people transit through the system of healthcare. And when you get blockages, for whatever reason, increased numbers attending, my understanding is that we had fewer discharges on Monday, but we will look at all areas of that chain as to where we can do better next time. I want to give a personal apology to the 19 people that were cancelled from their surgical operations, but that was about maintaining safety, not just for the people in the flow in, but also for them as well. And we will be getting in touch with them to get new dates as soon as possible.
What can you tell us about what led to that warning being put out and dropping to Level 4, like you mentioned?
Well, yeah, that's something that's under review now, obviously, and we'll reflect on that in detail. But my understanding is that one of the big pressure points was fewer discharges than expected that day, and that will be for very reasonable medical reasons. And you then have an increase in numbers attending, and the flow stops. But we will be doing more work on that, and we will be letting our colleagues in the department and others know what that was.
There have been questions about capacity and bed numbers at Nobles Hospital, and some people even saying that the latest number of beds being spoken of by Manx Care doesn't account for things like maternity beds, children's wards, which don't allow for general use. They're more specialist beds, as they were. What are you doing to tackle capacity, first and foremost? We've heard about the extra 12 spaces that are going to be improved. How many realistically do we need at this stage?
So that's a question that my exec team are working on. As you know, the department's doing a bed review, but a bed review is much more than just the number of beds. It's about the flow into them, out of them, and the delays and all of that sort of thing. So it's not just a matter of counting them, obviously. We have got pressures because we don't have Martin Ward at Ramsey at the moment. That will resolve. So there's always constant work looking at capacity going on.
Finally, a word for Teresa Cope. After 5.5 years, she's leaving now. What's going through your mind this week, and what will go through your mind at the end of next month when she walks out the door? Are you worried about the transition period?
At my stage in my career, I worry about all sorts of things. But I have complete faith in my executive team here, and not just in the exec team, but the people that come to work every day, matrons, brand new nurses, brand new doctors, consultants. We are not going to let the ball drop. But in terms of one word for Teresa, just simply isn't enough, but I guess it will be thank you.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio Newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.